What happens when Ford takes one of America's most recognizable muscle cars, gives a convertible roof, adds a supercharged V8, and pushes output to a staggering 795 horsepower? You get a Mustang that sounds less like a weekend cruiser and more like a full-blown performance machine designed to make every drive feel like an event. Today, we're taking a deep look at the Ford Mustang Dark Horse SC Convertible, a car that promises to bring open-air driving together with serious supercharged V8 performance. With deliveries expected in spring 2027, this could become one of the most exciting Mustang variants for enthusiasts who want brutal acceleration without giving up the experience of driving with the roof down. Before we get into the numbers and the performance, imagine the scene. You press the start button, the engine fires, and immediately you know this isn't an ordinary convertible. Under the hood sits a supercharged V8 producing an incredible 795 horsepower. That means this Mustang isn't simply about looking aggressive parked outside a cafe. It's about delivering the kind of performance that can turn an ordinary road into an unforgettable experience. The Mustang Dark Horse already represents one of the most performance-focused versions of the modern Mustang family. Add supercharging to that formula, and things get considerably more serious. The first number that grabs everyone's attention is 795 horsepower. That's the kind of output that changes the entire character of a car. In a machine like this, acceleration should feel immediate and violent, with the supercharger helping deliver enormous power throughout the rev range. And because this is a convertible, the experience becomes even more dramatic. Imagine accelerating with the roof down and hearing a supercharged V8 working directly behind you. The sound, the engine response, the rush of acceleration and the sensation of open air could make this one of the most theatrical Mustangs ever produced. But raw horsepower isn't everything. A powerful car needs a chassis capable of controlling that power. The Dark Horse name is already associated with a more aggressive performance setup, and that makes the convertible concept particularly interesting. A convertible has different structural demands compared with a fixed-roof coupe. Engineers have to balance stiffness, weight, ride quality, handling, and everyday usability. That means the challenge isn't simply putting a massive engine into a Mustang and call it a day. The real challenge is making the entire car work together. And that's where the Dark Horse identity becomes important. The Mustang Dark Horse is designed to look like something serious. The styling communicates performance before the engine even starts. The aggressive front end, muscular bodywork, dramatic stance, and performance-focused details all contribute to an appearance that immediately separates it from a standard Mustang. Now, picture that same aggressive design with convertible roof lowered. It creates an interesting combination of muscle car attitude and open-air grand touring. Put the roof up, and the car can look like a serious performance coupe. Drop the roof, and suddenly it becomes a completely different kind of experience. This is exactly why high-performance convertibles remain so appealing. They aren't necessarily about achieving the absolute lowest lap time. They're about combining speed with emotion. And emotion is something the Mustang has always understood. For decades, the Mustang has represented accessible American performance. It has evolved from a relatively simple muscle car into a technologically advanced sports coupe, but the basic formula remains familiar. Powerful engine, rear-wheel drive character, aggressive styling, and a driving experience that doesn't feel anonymous. The Dark Horse takes that philosophy and pushes it toward a more serious performance category. With 795 horsepower on tap, the supercharged version takes another step forward. Think about what nearly 800 horsepower means in everyday driving. You wouldn't need to use all of it to have fun. In fact, you would probably use only a fraction of the available power most of the time. But knowing that the engine has this enormous reserve changes the character of the car. A gentle press of the accelerator can become a serious event. And when you find an appropriate road or track where conditions allow you to explore the car's capabilities, the Mustang could reveal an entirely different personality. The supercharger is also an important part of the story. Unlike naturally aspirated engines, where power delivery depends heavily on engine speed and displacement, force induction allows engineers to extract significantly more power from the V8. That means the Dark Horse SC isn't simply another Mustang with a few cosmetic upgrades. The engine is at the heart of what makes this version special. And then there is the sound. For many Mustang fans, engine sound is almost as important as acceleration. A powerful V8 already produces an unmistakable soundtrack, but adding a supercharger introduces another layer to that experience. You can imagine a combination of deep V8 exhaust tones with a distinctive whine of forced induction. With the roof lowered, the driver and passengers will be surrounded by that mechanical soundtrack. That could be one of the defining characteristics of this car. Of course, there's another side to having nearly 800 horsepower: responsibility. A car with this level of performance demands respect. Traction, tires, road conditions, weather, and driver inputs all become extremely important. A high-powered rear-wheel drive car can go from calm to chaotic very quickly if the driver isn't careful. That's why modern performance cars rely heavily on sophisticated chassis systems, electronic controls, performance tires, advanced braking systems, and carefully calibrated suspension setups. The goal isn't simply to make the car powerful. The goal is to make the power usable. And that's what will ultimately determine whether the Mustang Dark Horse SC Convertible becomes a great performance car or simply an impressive number on paper. The convertible configuration also raises an interesting question about weight. Removing the fixed roof and engineering the body to work without it can introduce additional structural requirements. Extra reinforcement may be necessary to maintain rigidity, and that can affect overall weight. For a high-performance car, weight matters. But there is another perspective. This isn't necessarily a car designed solely to chase lap records. The convertible version exists because some buyers value the experience of open-air performance. You aren't buying this kind of Mustang simply because you want the quickest possible way around a circuit. You're buying it because you want the drama. You want to hear the engine. You want to feel the wind. You want the car to attract attention. And you want to know that when you put your foot down, there is an enormous amount of power waiting underneath the accelerator. That combination is difficult to replicate with an electric car, even though electric performance cars can deliver astonishing acceleration. There is something uniquely mechanical about a supercharged V8. You have moving parts, combustion, exhaust pulses, mechanical noise, and a physical connection between the engine and the driver that has defined performance cars for generations. For enthusiasts, that's more than transportation. It's an experience. Inside the cabin, we can expect the Dark Horse SC Convertible to maintain the performance-focused character associated with the Mustang family, while still offering the technology and comfort expected from a modern premium performance vehicle. The cabin of a modern Mustang is very different from the interior of the classic cars that made the name famous. Digital displays, advanced driver information, connectivity, modern infotainment, and electronically controlled performance systems have transformed the experience. But the basic purpose remains the same. The driver sits behind the wheel of a machine designed to be enjoyed. And in the Dark Horse SC, the steering wheel suddenly becomes a control center for nearly 800 horsepower. One of the most interesting aspects of this car is how it could fit into the broader Mustang lineup. The Mustang family has expanded considerably over the years. There are models designed for everyday driving, versions focused on performance, and special editions aimed directly at enthusiasts. The Dark Horse occupies an important position because it represents a more extreme interpretation of the Mustang without completely abandoning usability. Now add a supercharged engine and convertible body. Suddenly you have a car that could appeal to someone who wants a very high-performance Mustang but doesn't want to sacrifice the open-air experience. It's a niche within a niche, and that is exactly what makes it interesting. When deliveries begin arriving in spring 2027, assuming the expected timeline holds, this Mustang will likely attract serious attention from enthusiasts. People will want to hear it, see it, drive it, and most importantly, discover what nearly 800 horsepower feels like with the roof down. There will also be plenty of questions. How quick will it be? How much will it weigh? How will the suspension be tuned? How will Ford manage the additional power? What kind of tires and brakes will be fitted? How will the convertible structure affect handling? And perhaps the biggest question of all, will the car feel like a true driver's Mustang, or will the enormous power become the main attraction? Those questions will only be answered fully when production cars reach the road and independent testing begins. But the headline figure alone is enough to make this Mustang fascinating. 795 horsepower. Read that number again. That's not a typo. This is a kind of power figure that would have sounded almost unbelievable in a factory Mustang from previous generations. And yet modern engineering has made it possible. The Supercharged V8 also places a Mustang in an interesting part of the performance car market. Many manufacturers are moving towards smaller turbocharged engines, hybrid powertrains, or fully electric propulsion. Ford's decision to continue developing high-output V8 Mustang variants gives traditional performance enthusiasts something to celebrate. The Dark Horse SC represents a continuation of that philosophy. It's loud, it's powerful, it's aggressive, and it's unapologetically mechanical. But the real appeal isn't simply the engine, it's the combination. A supercharged V8, rear-wheel drive performance, muscular Mustang styling, convertible freedom, and nearly 800 horsepower. Put all those ingredients together, and you get something that should feel very different from an ordinary luxury convertible. This isn't designed to quietly glide down the highway. It's designed to make an impression. Picture taking it on a long road trip with the roof down. The sun is setting, the road opens up, and the V8 is sitting there ready to respond. You don't necessarily need to drive at extreme speeds. The experience itself becomes the point. That's the beauty of a car like this. You can enjoy the engine without constantly chasing maximum performance. You can appreciate the styling when it's parked. You can lower the roof when the weather is perfect. And when you want to unleash the power, you have 795 horsepower waiting. Of course, owning a car like this won't be for everyone. Fuel consumption will almost certainly be one of the compromises. A large supercharged V8 producing this much power isn't designed around maximum efficiency. Tire costs, brake wear, insurance, and maintenance could also be significant compared with normal Mustang. But performance enthusiasts rarely buy cars like this because they're the cheapest option. They buy them because they want something memorable. And memorable is probably the best word to describe the Mustang Dark Horse SC Convertible. The styling is memorable. The engine is memorable. The power figure is memorable, and the experience of driving a nearly 800 horsepower convertible is likely to be something you don't forget quickly. Another important factor will be pricing. The final positioning of the car will determine how accessible it is and who becomes the target customer. If Ford places it significantly above other Mustang variants, buyers will have to decide whether the additional power and exclusivity justify the premium. At this level, customers aren't simply comparing horsepower. They're comparing experience, design, technology, handling, sound, practicality, brand identity, and emotional appeal. And the Mustang has something many competitors don't: heritage. The Mustang name carries decades of history. That history is part of the reason people react so strongly to new versions. Every generation has its supporters, every engine has its fans, and every special edition creates a new chapter in the Mustang story. The Dark Horse name itself represents a newer chapter. The supercharged convertible could become another. And if Ford gets the formula right, this could be one of those Mustangs enthusiasts remember years from now. Imagine looking back in the future and saying, that was the Mustang with the supercharged V8 and nearly 800 horsepower. That's the kind of specification that creates an instant identity. But numbers aren't enough. The car has to deliver. It has to steer properly. It has to stop confidently. It has to put the power down. It has to feel composed when driven hard. And most importantly, it has to make the driver want to keep driving. That's the real test. Because the greatest performance cars aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest numbers. They're the ones that make you look back after parking and think, I want to drive that again. The Mustang Dark Horse SC Convertible has the ingredients to create exactly that reaction. The supercharged V8 gives it outrageous power. The Dark Horse platform gives it performance credibility. The convertible body gives it a unique personality. And the Mustang name gives it decades of emotional history. Now, if you're watching this video and you're a Mustang fan, there's probably one question already in your mind. Would you choose this supercharged convertible over a high-performance Mustang Coupe? The Coupe should have advantages when it comes to structural rigidity, weight, and ultimate track performance. But the convertible offers something the Coupe simply can't replicate: open-air driving. And when you're listening to a 795 horsepower V8, That could be an experience worth accepting a few compromises for. For some buyers, the answer will be obvious. They'll want the coupe. They'll want maximum performance. They'll want the most focused driving experience possible. For others, the convertible will be the dream. They'll want the sound, the sunshine, the styling, and the feeling of driving a supercharged V8 with nothing above their heads. Neither choice is necessarily wrong. That's what makes the Mustang lineup so interesting. It can offer different personalities built around the same basic idea. And the Dark Horse SC Convertible could occupy one of the most exciting positions in that lineup. As we look towards spring 2027, this is definitely a car worth watching. The automotive industry is changing rapidly, and traditional V8 performance is becoming increasingly rare. Every new high-output combustion performance car feels more significant because enthusiasts know the era is changing. That makes a Mustang like this more than just another new model. It represents a particular kind of automotive experience. A big engine, a loud exhaust, a supercharger, rear-wheel drive dynamics, and the freedom of a convertible. Whether you're a lifelong Mustang fan or simply someone who appreciates extreme performance cars, the Dark Horse SC Convertible is the kind of vehicle that gets your attention. 795 horsepower is an extraordinary figure, but the real story is what Ford does with those 795 horses. If the chassis, brakes, tires, suspension, transmission, cooling, and electronics can all work together, this could be far more than a straight-line monster. It could be a genuinely exciting driver's car. And that's what we should be looking for when the production cars arrive. We want to know what it feels like from behind the wheel. We want to know how the power builds. We want to know how the supercharger sounds. We want to know how the car behaves when pushed through corners. We want to know whether the convertible body compromises the experience or actually adds another dimension to it. And we want to know whether Ford has created something that feels special every time you start the engine. Because at the end of the day, horsepower is just a number. The experience is what matters. And if Ford can turn 795 horsepower into a controlled, emotional, engaging driving experience, the Mustang Dark Horse SC Convertible could become one of the most exciting American performance cars of its era. So, as we wait for the expected spring 2027 deliveries, the anticipation is already building. A supercharged V8, 795 horsepower, a Mustang Dark Horse, and a convertible roof. That combination sounds absolutely wild. If you're a fan of American muscle, this is definitely a Mustang you're going to want to keep an eye on. Let me know in the comments. Would you take the 795 horsepower Dark Horse SC Convertible, or would you choose the coupe for maximum performance? And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more videos covering the latest performance cars, muscle cars, supercars, and future automotive releases. Because if the Mustang Dark Horse SC Convertible delivers on its promise, spring 2027 could be the beginning of a very exciting new chapter for the Mustang.